Last time on the Skip and Josh podcast.
I don't understand how a word that's written Keuchel is pronounced Keuchel. Now, this makes no sense to me.
Okay, but neither does Mike Krzyzewski.
Yeah, okay, you got me there.
The Skip and Josh podcast is on now.
Hello.
Hey, Skip, how are you?
What is going on?
I just finished watching the end of an NFL game that we'll talk about later on in the show.
Yeah?
But I think we both want to get down to business and recap the World Series.
Oh, well, we had some... We're jumping right in.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah, I mean, look, the World Series ended a few days ago, and I'm kind of sad that it's over because I love watching the games.
Yeah.
And I know we complain so much about how the games ended so late, but I love staying up late watching them.
You know, I told you this off air, but I'll tell the listeners what I did. I think it was game 3 and also game 5. Those games ended later than all the others.
Well, game 5, it ended like it's still going.
Right. And game 3 was the one that went into extra innings, I think.
Yeah.
Or was it game 2? I don't remember. But
game
anyway,
two.
Game 3 and 5 ended really late. And so what I did was I just before shutting the TV off and going to bed, the game was still going on. I hit record and I went to bed. And then I woke up the next morning and I didn't look at my phone and I didn't listen to the radio and I didn't look at anything. I just turned on my PVR and just started watching from where I left off. So even though it was like 12 hours later or 8 hours later or whatever it was, for me, it was like it was live.
I should have done the same thing. I tried to do the same thing for Game 5. The Game 5, like, honestly, I could not stay up. Honestly, I just could not stay up.
Neither could I.
Yeah. And I ended up falling asleep and basically woke up when it was like, oh, the winning run scored and the game's over, you know, kind of thing. So I don't know. Where do you want to start with this? Like, I mean, congratulations to the Astros.
Sure, but they'll never hear this, so we don't need to congratulate them. But here's where I want to start.
First things first, I'm not really.
Okay.
And we'll talk about a million things, and we're not going to go in any kind of order.
I have a few points that I wrote down, but like it's nothing. Like I'm sure we'll get into it.
Well, here's what I wanted to mention: a couple things. So, all the so-called experts, said that the Dodgers had the advantage going into Game 5 because Kershaw was pitching.
Well, this is what I said.
Well, and not
You're
you were
calling
the only
me
one.
the so-called expert.
Right. Well, but the Dodgers didn't
praise.
win Game 5. And then in Game 6, everyone said the Astros have the advantage because Verlander was starting and the Astros didn't win Game 6, which just comes back to what I said to you, I think, a month ago. The pitching matchups are meaningless.
I mean, they're not meaningless, but I think they're overvalued, right? And like you say anybody could win any game, right? Which is true.
Which is true.
Yeah. But I think maybe you're right. I always look at the games every year for my whole life. I look at the pitching matchups and I'm like, hey, what do I think? Obviously, you know, Kershaw should win this game and Verlander should win the next game. And I give you a lot of credit because when I said that, you're like, no, I think it's going to be the opposite. You know, it doesn't matter, right? So you were right on with that, I have to admit. But I mean, I'm still going to look at the pitching matchups, but it's tough looking at pitching matchups when the managers don't let their pitchers go past 5 innings.
You're right.
Right.
Absolutely.
So that's also another thing.
Yes, they all had a very quick hook, and then you wonder why, you know, Kenley Jansen is blowing a save because he's been asked to pitch way more innings than he normally does.
Well, this happens every year. This is a recurring theme in the baseball playoffs for as long as we've been following baseball. I mean, the Yankee dynasty, right? Mariano Rivera, the greatest closer of all time, right? But, you know, in 2000, they lost to the Diamondbacks. And you know why they lost to the Diamondbacks? Because they had no one else in the bullpen that year. All the other years of the Yankee teams, they had great bullpens. They had Mike Stanton, Graham Lloyd.
Lloyd, he's awful.
Yeah, but he was good on the Yankees.
Maybe he was on the Yankees. Not
they
on the
had Ramiro Mendoza. They had Mariano Rivera as the setup man to Wetland. Like they had a lot of bodies in the bullpen. And that year, Rivera was the only guy, right? And by the time it got to Game 7, they got to him. You know, the D-backs got to him. And the same thing happened here with Kenley Jansen. It's funny because in game earlier on in the series, he came in and the announcers are like, Kenley Jansen, he's being asked to get a 6-out save. And I'm like, who the hell cares? The guy can't get a 6-out save? You know?
Apparently he can't.
And in my mind, I was like, apparently he can't. I think they're so specialized now, right? These guys, as soon as they step out of their comfort zone by this much, it's they everything is like Seinfeld, right? You can't disturb the delicate genius.
It's so true,
right? The delicate genius.
They're so mentally gifted that we mustn't disturb the delicate genius.
Kenley Jansen, he can only get 3 outs. He can't get 4. He can't get 5. And forget about 6, right? It's got to only be 3. It's only be 3, right? And that's what happened. And look, the Astros closer Giles. I mean, it's a whole other story. He forgot how to pitch. He lost his confidence. They couldn't do anything. And AJ Hinch is getting a lot of praise for how he handles his pitchers in Game 6 and Game 7, right? But I mean, what other choice did he have? You know, Game 7, he brings in Peacock, and then he brings in Morton, and that's the only bodies he had. I mean, Francisco Liriano was always available, but clearly he didn't want to use him because he was there warming up every game, but he never came in. And then Verlander was warming up at the end of Game 7. I don't know if he was really going to bring him in or not, but like...
Well, he wasn't warming up to pitch the next day because there was no next day.
I know, but like, you know, everyone's praising him. Oh, you brought in Charlie Morton. Like, well, okay, you know, he brought him in. That's all he could do. That's all he could do, you know?
Morton and Peacock both pitched well every time they were used.
Morton was solid, yeah, and Peacock was very solid too, I have to admit. Davinsky was up and down, and I mean, Giles was completely useless. I mean, you know, but...
What I didn't understand was they interviewed all the guys after the game, all the players, whatever, and most of those interviews are a waste of time. But
yeah,
when they interviewed McCullers, who started Game 7...
Oh, I'm so happy you said that. McCullers is the best interview because he talks the truth, this guy.
Right, that's fine. But he said, you know, they asked him about being taken out at, a third, fourth inning? I don't even remember now. And he's like, yeah, I told AJ I had nothing left in the tank. But what do you mean you had nothing left in the tank? He was pitching on normal rest. So why did he have nothing left in the tank?
No, I don't know if was it normal rest or was it 3 days rest?
No, because he had pitched, what was it, Game 7? So he had pitched Game 3, I guess. Yeah. He had pitched Game 3.
Should have been fine.
And there's plenty of time between Game 3 and 7.
But it could happen that, you know, you warm up in the bullpen that before the game starts and you know you don't have your stuff. Right? You know.
He was the guy actually the night before, after Game 6 ended, he was out in right field throwing a baseball with somebody. I've never seen that in my entire life where after a game, the guy's out there on the field, long tossing the day before he's about to start. I've never seen that in my life.
Well, I mean, he really did have nothing. He hit 3 batters, right? Like
4.
Or 4, right? Like he had no control, and they had to get him out of there. And quite frankly, the Astros are lucky they survived. And what do you think? Like, I know it's hindsight is 2020, and of course we're looking at everything because we know what happened. But like, what if they would have started Kershaw instead of Darvish? Like,
I'll tell you why you can't even ask that question for a couple reasons. You don't know how long Kershaw can go. Like, he ended up pitching 3-4 innings that night.
Yeah.
But you don't know how long he's going to be able to go. So how you start him, and let's say he can only go 3 innings. What do you do in the 4th? Okay, so Darvish had a bad start, and he had 2 bad starts. But if you look at all of Darvish's starts since he got to the Dodgers, I think those were his only 2 bad starts since he got to the Dodgers. So you're not going to use the guy that you went out and got at the trading deadline for this exact reason? You're not going to use him?
Dave Roberts said the same thing. He's like, if you look at all of Darvish's starts since they acquired him, he's been great for them. So why wouldn't we use him, right?
Then why did you go get him if you're not going to use him?
Why have a rotation, right?
Yeah,
why not
exactly.
just pitch Kershaw every game?
Exactly.
You know, you got him to use him, and you got him to pitch in important games. So you do have to use him in important games, and they wanted to use him in important games. That's why they got him. But like, I think it just everything kind of blew up in their face because he couldn't last more than an inning and a half or whatever it is. And by the time he got out of the game, it was too late. And the one game where the Astros needed like the bullpen to just come in and shut the door, they got it, which was pretty crazy, right? Like you said, we were actually together in Toronto during this when all this was happening. We weren't watching together, but we talked in person about the games and everything. And you said to me, it's like, man, you know, like Game 5 was amazing, but like Game 6 and 7 were like ho-hum. They weren't exciting games, right?
No, they weren't. Game 5 was great. Game 2 was great. Game 3 was very good. But you're right. Game 6 and 7 were like, they were just regular games.
Still a good World Series all in all. I mean, I still enjoyed it. Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to mention is these guys on the Dodgers like Seager and Bellinger and Peterson.
Yeah.
Like they, even if you told them the curveball is coming, they still can't lay off the curveball. Do they not understand that they're in the major leagues now and pitchers have more than one pitch? I don't get it.
Bellinger couldn't hit anything, basically.
No, he couldn't.
He was useless. Honestly, I really think they should not have used him because
Well, I mean,
he was confused.
better.
He was they have so many guys. They could have figured something out. What about Kike Hernandez or whoever? Someone can play, but I don't know. He was really lost up there. As much as Aaron Judge was lost in the ALCS and in the division series, this was 100 times worse.
Well, I mean, they're both rookies, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah,
they're
both. Yeah.
That explains it right there.
There's a lot to be said for learning how to be a major league hitter. Look, you read Moneyball, right?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, for everybody out there that saw the movie Moneyball, that's Hollywood. The book is like it's really analytical. It really goes into the nitty-gritty about this strategy of how to assemble a team. But I'm not going to get into the principles of Moneyball, but one of the things that they really focus on there is that you can look at a guy and you could say, yeah, he's 6'3", he's 200 pounds, he can throw, he has an arm like a cannon, he can run the bases, he can hit for average, he can hit for power. Like they rank them on these like physical abilities, right? Mm-hmm. But there's one thing that they can't quantitatively with numbers do, which is, can the guy hit? Like, meaning, does he know how to hit? Does he understand an approach to an at-bat, right? Instead of just going up there hacking, right? And I mean, we lived through the Vladimir Guerrero era, right? This guy was...
I thought you were going to say Larry Walker.
Well, no, Larry Walker was a hitter. He turned himself into it, right?
Remember his rookie year, how many times he struck out?
Terrible. But like, you have a guy like Vladimir Guerrero, he can go up there and he's such a rare talent that comes into the league once in a generation. Doesn't matter what happens, he's going to hit anything, right? Mm-hmm. Like, he doesn't have to learn how to hit because he's that good. But like other guys, you have to learn how to approach an at-bat. What's the pitcher going to throw you? Where do you think he's going to pitch you? Inside, outside, up, down? Is he going to waste the pitch? Fastballs, curveballs. You have to really understand kind of the art of hitting, right? Mm-hmm. And these rookies, they're not equipped to do that. They're really not equipped to do that right now. Obviously, Bellinger, he couldn't even make contact, right?
I mean, I still want to have that guy on my team.
Oh, 100%. Especially, I wanted to mention something. Got a little message from one of our listeners, Derek.
Yes.
Who pointed out a little error that we made.
Oh, goodness.
Actually, because we talked about the Dodgers, just because you're talking about the roster. So the Dodgers payroll.
It's so high.
Yeah, but I said Justin Turner doesn't make very much. He actually made $12 million this year.
Yes, I looked that up afterwards.
Yeah, so I do have the list of all the salaries, and they did have the highest salary in baseball in 2017. Mm-hmm. But because Adrian Gonzalez made $22 million, Andre Ethier, a guy that had like 3 at-bats in the World Series, mm-hmm. $17 million, right? Granderson's on the payroll for $15 million. I don't know how much they paid of that.
Right.
And they still have $11 million for Brandon McCarthy. And like there's about $50 million there or more, $80 million of like basically dead weight.
Right.
Okay.
And
when I look back, going back a few years, and like there's some other contracts that like Carl Crawford just came off the books like in 2016 or 2015. Like they still had other contracts that they were holding on to. But you mentioned, would you still have to have Bellinger? Look at these guys. Chris Taylor, Cody Bellinger, Austin Barnes are making the minimum. Charlie Culberson is making the minimum. Jock Peterson, $555,000, right? Corey Seager, $500. Yeah. All these guys are in the $500,000s. Seager, Peterson, Austin Barnes, Cody Bellinger, Chris Taylor.
That's the whole starting lineup.
I'm thinking back to exactly a year ago today. By the way, it's the 1-year anniversary of the podcast a couple of days ago. So, 64, this is the 65th episode, and, we're going to keep pumping them out, right?
Absolutely.
Bigger and better in 2018. So, I mean, we had this exact conversation last year, and I remember exactly what I said. I'm like, look at the Cubs. Look at their infield. Rizzo, Bryant, who was the shortstop last? Who's their shortstop? Addison Russell, Baez. Like, these guys are all 22, 23 years old. They're going to be together forever, right?
Do you remember what I said?
You said anything could happen.
Yeah, I said, remember when the Expos were the team of the 80s and they were supposed to win the World Series every year for the decade? So just because you've got the lineup and the roster doesn't mean it's going to happen.
You have to put it all together. To win a championship, a lot of things have to go your way. And unfortunately, it's a sad thing to say, but like some of it's luck. You know, there's a luck aspect involved. A lot of stuff has to go your way. And whether it's luck during a game or it's luck like not being injured, you know, you have to stay healthy, right? You know, and sometimes you need to really be lucky to not just have your team get like decimated with injuries. But certainly when you look at like all those guys that I just mentioned, all making under $1 million a year, basically rookies, it looks pretty good for the Dodgers, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And knowing that all this other contracts are going to come off the books, and knowing that they're willing to spend, like obviously they're willing to, they don't care if they're the highest paid payroll. They want to be the highest paid payroll. They want to win.
Right.
So they're going to go out and get whoever it is.
It's not like it used to be. I don't think you can buy yourself a championship. I mean, look how the Astros won a championship.
You can't.
And look
you
how,
can't.
And look how the Cubs won the championship.
Yeah.
They didn't really go out and sign a bunch of big name free agents and then win it all. Like the Astros did it from scratch. They did it through homegrown talent.
You need to have the base of your team, the spine of your team needs to be guys that you developed, and then you can supplement it with Justin Verlander. Right? Or go out and get whenever you need to take you over the top, right? Speaking of Justin Verlander, congratulations to him and Kate Upton. I heard they got married this weekend in Italy.
Does that mean I don't have a shot with her now?
Well, apparently not.
I need to go wallow in my pillow now.
Do you have anything more you wanted to say about the World Series? I mean...
Well, you were talking about you need to have luck to win. So
yeah,
we didn't even talk about the Cleveland Indians because they weren't in the World Series. But do you recall the 22-game winning streak they had, or was it 26-game winning streak that they had, and how they had the best record in the American League?
Unstoppable.
And they, I think, lost 3 games in all of September, maybe 4, and then they lost 3 games in a week to the Yankees in October.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's some luck involved there too, or
there
bad
is.
luck.
I mean, look, when you're thinking about the 2018 season, I think certainly the team to watch is going to be the Cleveland Indians because, like, they made it to the World Series last year. They thought they were getting back there this year with a better team, which they had, and they didn't quite make it. So now, I mean, look out! Like they're gonna go full out in 2018 for that to make it, right? I mean,
but I don't know how they can improve their team though, because that last year they went and got Encarnacion to improve their lineup.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
What are they going to do to improve their team now? Like, I don't think they can get any better.
Well, they don't have much happening at third base, so there certainly can be an improvement there, whether it's the guys they're using getting better or going to get someone. And, I mean, they were exposed a little bit. We talked about it, right? When Encarnacion got injured, all of a sudden they had, like, no power, right?
Well, they were the same team that they were last year.
Yeah. So I think that's something they can address. And I mean, obviously, like if we're talking about who's favored for 2018, I mean, we can look up the Vegas odds. I'm sure it's the Dodgers and the Astros, right?
For sure. Yeah, it should be.
I mean, look, the Astros with Altuve, Correa, and Bregman. I mean, that makes the Cubs infield look like minor leagues, to be honest.
And while I don't want to admit it, and I don't think it's going to happen, the Nationals are certainly still one of the teams that are heavily favored to win the World Series next year because they have all their stars coming back for their last year.
Yeah, but I don't know. They seem, like you said, it doesn't make a difference. I don't, like, you're the one that said it. It doesn't make a difference. They're damaged goods.
They are damaged goods. They're cursed.
They're cursed.
Yeah.
So, like, who cares what they do? They won't win. Maybe I just reverse cursed them.
You might have, because everything you said last episode all got undone 2 days later.
I know. A lot of stuff I said is, like, completely, like, no good, right?
Yeah.
You can't trust me anymore, really.
Well, no, it's not that. It's like, if someone's in a slump, all they need to do is have you mention them, and they'll break out of the slump.
Well, are we going to transition to, like, another sport right now? Because I have the example of that.
I know. Go ahead.
So, let's like move into hockey, I guess.
Do you want to play a clip from last week's episode where you said that Lehkonen doesn't have a goal and Hudon doesn't have a goal? We should play last week's clip and then talk about what they did this week.
All the guys in the Canadians that I said need to start scoring, all of a sudden they all scored this week.
Yeah.
So that's good. Maybe they heard me. They felt the pressure.
Yeah.
Right? They felt the pressure.
By the way, speaking of the Canadians,
yeah,
I am 99.9% certain that the lower body injury that Carey Price has is a made-up injury.
Oh, okay. Listen, I want everybody to know we don't rehearse this show. We don't even, like you said it so many times, we don't even want to talk. We don't even want to talk during the week because we don't want to ruin what we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
I had one thing to talk about in hockey. One thing.
What's that?
And it was the Carey Price injury is fake.
It's totally fake.
It's 100% fake. It's like
It was all an act.
Not bad, huh?
What about the breathing, the panting, the moaning, the screaming?
Fake.
and I don't know why, like in the on the radio here on Friday and like in the newspapers, not that I read the newspapers, but the local media, no one's calling them out on it. Everyone's kind of like just like, oh yeah, he has a lower body injury. BS, he doesn't have a lower body injury. They needed to give him a rest. They just wanted to sit him out so he can collect his thoughts, he can work on something in practice, whatever, and they can't call up another goalie unless he's injured. So they said he's injured, right?
He needed a mental health day.
He needed a mental health week, I think.
Yes.
But like,
isn't
remember,
it interesting? The night before, he played the entire game.
They asked him, "Are you injured?" And he said, "No."
What's that?
They asked him the game before that, "Are you hurt?" And he's like, "No, I'm healthy."
So he played the entire game, and then in the morning, all of a sudden, there's a little press conference, or presser, as you like to call it.
I don't like to call it presser. I hate that.
I know. And then you see Claude Julien standing there saying that Carey Price got injured, and they asked him, "When did it happen?" I don't know. Yeah, it reminds me because it didn't happen.
It never happened. It reminds me of back in the day. You're the one that always used to say this, and I would be like skeptical, be like, "No, they're not doing that." The Expos,
they
would
time.
always. Oh my God. They always were full of like hot prospects, right? Like Expos always had like the next big thing in the minors ready to come up. And a lot of times it was true, right? Like a lot of times we had huge prospects ready to come up. And they couldn't call up these guys unless they made room on the roster, and they didn't want to send someone down. So you always used to tell me they would make up injuries. Oh yeah, so-and-so went on the 25, it was the 25 DL back then.
Or 15, 20, I think there was 15.
No, it was a 15-day DL. So, so-and-so went on the 15-day DL, and you're like, well, they just made that up because they want to call up the other guy, right? And I would always tell you, no. I'm like, I would always tell you, no, they're not making up injuries. They wouldn't do that. I was so like naive in a way, right? But when this happened with Carey Price, I was like, do they think we're stupid?
Yes.
Honestly.
Yes.
They think the fans are like going to eat this up?
Yes.
It's ridiculous. And the other thing I heard on the radio here is, if you look at the tape when he has to go from in the net from left to right, or maybe it's from right to left. I don't know what. I don't remember which direction. Yeah. When he has to go a certain direction from one post to the other, he can't push off properly. It's not the same. It doesn't look right. Mm-hmm. I'm like, okay, but like, is he really injured? Like, I don't know. I just think it's like really embarrassing for the team that this is what they've had to kind of resort to. You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Meanwhile, in Toronto, the Leafs are like coming back to earth, right?
Well, it's fall, so the leaves are falling.
The leaves are falling. The leaves are falling. I like that. That's a good one. I mean, remember last year at the end of the season, we did an episode called like A Tale of Two Cities. Mm-hmm. Basically saying like how in Montreal it was all doom and gloom, and in Toronto it was all rainbows and unicorns.
Yeah.
Even though the teams went just as far in the playoffs as each other, right?
Right.
But and I agree. Like Toronto was the future's very bright, and Montreal it didn't look so hot. But the thing that I told you then is that what these young players in Toronto are going to have to deal with is what that they never had to deal with since they've been in Toronto is expectations. All of a sudden, there's expectations.
The good thing for them is their best player is American, so hopefully he won't feel as much pressure as a kid that grew up an hour out of Toronto and was a Leafs fan his entire life and now is playing on the team and has all this pressure on his shoulders. Like, for example, Jonathan Drouin on the Canadiens.
Yeah, that might be a factor, but I mean, still when you get into that dressing room in Toronto and you got like 20 million mics in front of you asking you the minutia of every play of the game, like this is something they're used to because they've seen it, but all of a sudden, there was not any negative reporting on the Leafs all of last year. Everything was positive, right? Even when they lost, it was like It's okay that we lost. We're getting better. That was always the angle. And now, I think for the first time for this generation of players on the Leafs, it's not okay just to be good. It's not okay just to be okay or be good. They have to be good all the time, right?
Well, you said it earlier about baseball and expectations. Mm-hmm. So now there's expectations on the Leafs.
Yeah.
And people were getting like, I don't know what the word is, too excited because yes, they had a good season and yes, the team is going to get better, but this isn't the year they're going to win the cup.
Yeah, I know. Look, we joked around and we said, have they planned the Stanley Cup parade route yet? And you're like, yeah, of course. Like we joked around about that. And of course we don't think they're really like, that's just like hyperbole, but there's a grain of truth in that, like the overexcitement, as much as there's like doom and gloom in Montreal about like tear down the team, trade this guy, get rid of this guy, fire everybody, burn it down. There's like in Toronto, it's the opposite. Everyone's like, we're winning the cup. That's like the two extremes. And I think the Toronto fans maybe are a little bit overexcited about the prospects of the team. And maybe they're going to have to live through a season where maybe they're fighting for a playoff spot, right? Instead of just being in first place or whatever they thought they were going to be. We'll see. Or it could just be a little bump in the road right now with the Leafs, right? I mean, they lost a few games in a row, but I mean, what's their record? They're like one game over 500, I think, right?
Something like that. I think this is actually a good thing for them because the coach has a lot of video to show the day after the game to say, look, this is what you did wrong, and this is why we gave up a goal, and this is why we lost the game.
Right.
And they need to fail before they can succeed.
That's right.
So it's not such a bad thing. And as I said, they weren't going to win the Stanley Cup this year anyway. So you might as well have these speed bumps now.
Mm-hmm. Did you hear there was a breaking news while we were just about to record that finally Matt Duchene got traded?
Oh, I didn't even hear.
Yeah, well, it's the same trade that was rumored a couple of days ago that kind of got shot down. Mm-hmm. So Matt Duchene was traded to Ottawa, and Kyle Turris went to Nashville, and Colorado got like a bounty of like players and draft picks.
I'm upset that the Canadiens didn't get Matt Duchene.
Well, when you see what Colorado got, I mean, none of them are really like great players. I don't know who they are, to be honest. It says I have Gerard, Kamenev, Bowers, and Hammond. Hammond was not even in their team, really. So, but they got a first-round pick, a second-round pick, and a third-round pick. So I don't think the Canadiens were prepared to offer that. And the other big thing is that Turris got an extension as soon as he went to Nashville.
So I'm a little surprised. Why would Nashville make that trade? I get why Colorado would do it, and I get why Ottawa would do it. I don't get why Nashville would do that.
Well, they see themselves as Stanley Cup contenders, as they should. They were in the finals last year.
Okay.
And when Ryan Johansson went out with an injury, they had no one to play center.
Okay.
So I think they're looking at this as Turris is there now. He's the legit number 2 center. I think they feel like it's just giving them a lot of depth for their forwards.
That's fine, but if I'm Nashville and I'm going to give up a bunch of draft picks or prospects or whatever.
Yeah, well, some of those picks came from Ottawa, right?
Right.
Like Nashville just got them all.
I get it, but then I'd want to get Duchene, not Turris, if I'm Nashville.
Yeah, I guess, but I mean, for some reason, like Duchene had like one of the highest face-off percentage last year. It was like, or not, he was over 60%.
Okay,
but
I liked him even before you told me that.
I know, but the thing is, like most teams, and even Colorado, they play him on the wing. Like the 60% is in like a low amount of faceoffs.
Okay.
So I think teams don't look at him as a center for some reason. We'll see where Ottawa ends up using him. But Kyle Turris always did well against the Habs, so it's not sad to see him go. But certainly not looking forward to playing against Duchene because he's a hell of a player.
No, this helps Ottawa a lot.
Yeah, well, they're struggling, right? As much as the Canadiens are struggling, Ottawa. Look, the Canadiens just beat Ottawa 8-3.
I know.
So I think they need to take a long look in the mirror. Speaking of that, I hate their coach, by the way. God,
Guy Boucher?
Most overrated coach ever. Honestly,
he's like the Bill Belichick of the NHL.
He wishes.
Well, no, but I mean,
he hasn't ever won anything
in his press conferences. The way he answers questions. That's what I think.
He thinks he's like, beyond reproach on anything, even though he has never accomplished anything in the league. And somehow people think he's like this offensive coach. He's the most offensive coach in the league by far. By far. It's not even close. if any team still plays the trap, it's Ottawa. You know, it's really like quite funny because people are like, oh, you need to have an offensive coach like Guy Boucher. I'm like, do you ever watch them play? It's totally defensive hockey.
Yeah, it's not exciting.
Counterattack. You know, counterattack hockey. That's what it is. Wait till they come, clog up the neutral zone, and try to. Anyways, I don't want to get too.
Did you watch the Canadiens game last night?
No, I didn't. I was out for dinner with friends. And I was keeping track of the score. I saw all the highlights after. So
okay, so did you see the winning goal in overtime?
Yeah, I know. The Bufflin was complaining there was interference.
Okay, so I saw the replay a bunch of times.
Yeah.
And it looks like to me, Bufflin skates and hits Pacioretty, and he falls.
Yeah.
So what was he complaining about?
Well, Bufflin complains about everything, and when you lose, you complain about whatever. So they're just looking for a call. But you saw what the ref saw. Is that it wasn't interference, and maybe there's contact. Just because there's contact doesn't mean there's interference, right?
But if anything, Bufflin skated into Pacioretty. It wasn't the other way around.
I agree. I saw the same thing on. Saw this article saying, Jets think there's interference on the Pacioretty goal. What do you think? People are asking. The article was asking, and I'm like, no, I don't think there's interference. But I mean, I guess if you're a Jets fan, you see it one way.
The only thing I could think of, and I watched it a bunch of times, was that. Pacioretty, his skate got tangled up with Bufflin's skate. Yeah. And so I was Bufflin complaining that Pacioretty tripped him with his skate?
No, he was saying it was interference, but who knows? I mean, honestly, I don't know.
Anyway.
Yeah. Do you have any more hockey stuff or?
Not really. I do have some NFL stuff though.
I'm so happy that you mentioned about the fake injury. That's the only thing I wanted to talk about.
The instant I heard this on Friday, I'm like, okay, well, that's a fake injury. Like, yeah, nothing else crossed my mind other than this is a fake injury that they just made up.
Right.
I mean, we're in the era of fake news.
We are. We're in the era of fake news.
So,
and this is it, right? I mean, this is it. So, NFL.
Well, let's start off with this before we even get into this weekend's games.
Yeah.
As excited as the people of Houston were at winning the World Series,
oh my God,
how disappointing is it when you finally have a quarterback? Like, they've had a good team for a few years with no quarterback. Yeah. They finally find like potentially an all-star, potentially MVP caliber quarterback.
Last week I said he's the future of the NFL.
Yes. Well, you see, you jinxed him too.
I did.
And he gets injured in practice. Like, how does that happen? And this after losing J.J. Watt as well. I mean, we can have a whole episode just on all the All-Stars who've been injured this year. But I mean, for one team to lose two All-Star caliber players is just so unfair and so heartbreaking.
Really nuts, right?
Unbelievable.
I was so surprised. I mean, I came home, whatever, and my son came upstairs and he's like, Deshaun Watson's out for the season. I'm like, what do you mean? He got injured in practice? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, what? I'm like, I go on my phone, I look it up. I'm like, okay. Well, there goes their season, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they lost today to the Colts.
Yeah, and if you lose to the Colts, you're bad.
Okay, I don't know if you looked up the stats. The Colts have the worst defense in the league. They let up the most points in the league by far. More than any other team, they've had the most points scored against them. And somehow today, like, Texans couldn't manage an offensive score, right? I think they got one touchdown like on a fumble return or an interception return.
Well,
and then, of course, like they had a chance at the end of the game and they needed a touchdown. They kind of got into the red zone, but they couldn't do it. And as I was watching that series, seeing Tom Savage,
not the guy from Wonder Years.
Yeah, no, not
or the guy from our softball league.
That's Todd Savage from our softball league. Yeah. Like watching him like just not able to do anything at the end of the game, I only could start thinking about Colin Kaepernick.
Well, it's not going to happen, so don't even waste your time.
Do they think that they're better off with this stiff than Colin Kaepernick? Honestly,
yes, they do think that.
They do think that, and it's really okay. I mean, there's my answer, right? But yeah, I mean, it's really quite like frustrating to watch. Like when you see some of these quarterbacks that played this week. And it's just unbelievable.
It's ironic that the same week that Tom Savage started, another quarterback who also started this week is Brock Osweiler, who was on Houston for I think 15 minutes, before they got rid of him. And both of them started this week.
So even worse about Kaepernick not being in the league is that they're using Brock Osweiler. Now, the thing with Denver, which I don't understand, is they've been using
Trevor Siemian.
Siemian, okay, they benched him, whatever. They drafted a quarterback last year, Paxton Lynch. Why don't they want to use him?
I think it's the same thing as what the Rams did with Jared Goff. They want to make sure that he's ready.
Ugh, but I mean, you'd rather use Osweiler than him? Like, honestly. So, look, I mean, I'm glad you brought up Brock Osweiler. So, like, my team, the Eagles, they killed them today.
Yes.
And I said to Matthew as we were watching, I said, isn't it amazing when we looked at the Eagles schedule at the beginning of the year, we circled this Denver game as like a hard game. Like a game that they could lose. And it was over before it started, honestly.
Denver was great in September.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened to them because
I mean, when you rely on defense only, it's very hard, right? They can't move the ball. And like I know you talk about like Carson Wentz, like his stats aren't always so great. He had only 199 yards passing today, and they scored 55 points.
Yeah,
right. And he threw for 4 TDs. Like he's such a big play artist, it's unbelievable.
By the way, so Carson Wentz was drafted. Was it right before or right after Jared Goff?
After Goff, yeah.
Okay, Goff's team also put up 51 points today.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Goff is the Rams look serious.
Yeah,
me,
they do.
Honestly, like they destroyed today. Like they were on fire, right? And Goff, it's funny because he was the brunt of so many jokes last year. Jared Goff, you can't joke about him anymore.
No.
Todd Gurley completely ruined my fantasy football team last year. I had him with the first pick, like he was projected number 1 in every preseason projection, and I took him, and he sucked. And now all of a sudden he's good again. And Goff sucked last year. All of a sudden he's good.
Well, this is one example where how I always say the coach gets too much credit when a team wins. Yeah. But here's an example where the Rams went and got a new coach, and this new coach has made a huge difference because they're a completely different team.
Well, it's true that the coaches don't always make that much of a difference, but I mean, Jeff Fisher was a hot mess. Honestly, like the fact that he was still coaching in the league after all these years, like he had a losing record for like 10 straight years, and somehow yet the Rams are still signing him. Like, why do you want this guy?
He had a reputation of being a good coach from way back.
He had a reputation, but like the league changes, and he's such a defensive-minded coach. It's like, that's not the way of the league now. Like the NFL right now is about scoring,
Absolutely.
Like look at some of the score. Like it's all about scoring. It's all about passing, right? You need to have a quarterback that can throw the ball. Otherwise, you're not going to win. The days of 3 yards in a cloud of dust, Walter Payton, and like that's over. That's over.
Speaking of quarterbacks, a quarterback who did start today but did not play in the fourth quarter, and I don't know if it was due to injury or just because he was bad, was Eli Manning.
Oh well, it was because he's bad. I mean, it's bad. It's dark times right now for the Giants.
Oh yeah,
honestly.
absolutely. He's got no one to throw to, and I think he's done. Like he won 2 Super Bowls, good for him, but he's done.
He's done. Well, I mean, they got their asses handed to them today.
Yeah,
honestly,
they did.
And it was in New York, right? The game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, listen. If
the
you're
Rams
a Giants
had to
fan,
travel all the way across country and still put up 51 points.
Your theory about traveling, I guess it doesn't make a difference. Well, when you're playing a team as bad as the Giants, it's like the remedy for that.
There you go.
Right?
There you go.
And I mean, I watched a bunch of other games today. Carolina, who I think is a bad team, somehow managed to win. I think only because Atlanta's worse, right?
Well, it's funny. So, I make my picks every week.
Yeah.
First of all, just who's going to win and lose in one
I'm doing so bad in the against the spreads.
Well, never mind against the spread, but just winning and losing. I looked at this game and I said, it's interesting because the Panthers are a better road team than they are at home.
Yeah.
And the Falcons are also a better road team than they are at home.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, well, this is 100% the Falcons are going to win this game. There's no question in my mind. And so I picked the Falcons, and sure enough, they lost.
There you go.
So what
happens. So we had to delay recording tonight because you wanted to watch the end of the Redskins-Seattle game.
Yes. Well, first of all, I don't like the Redskins. Let me say that to start off in case people don't know that already. Mm-hmm. So I don't like the Redskins, but it was an exciting finish because it was a close game. And with 2 minutes to go, Seattle drove down the field and scored a touchdown, but left, a minute 30 or a minute 45 for Washington to get the ball. And Washington then drove down the field and scored a touchdown. So then Seattle had the ball with literally 59 seconds left, and all they needed was a field goal to tie. And they didn't end up getting it, but it was an exciting finish. But I was very disappointed at the outcome of that game because, of course, I picked Seattle to win that one, so I was wrong again. But it was an exciting game, or at least the end was.
I was trying to tell you before we started recording. The Redskins are a lot better than you think.
Okay.
And when you look at their pieces, the pieces of the team, right? They don't have any receivers.
No.
No. Right? They don't. They have Fat Rob running back, right?
Who's he's only healthy half the time.
They Cousins. Well, we know how you feel about Cousins.
He's not bad, but he's not
better
great.
than average quarterback.
But they don't have Deshaun Jackson anymore. They don't have Pierre Garçon anymore. Their top wide receiver is Terrell Pryor, who is nothing special.
Terrell Pryor, he doesn't know how to run a route.
There you go. So So how are they winning any games? Is what I'm saying.
Their defense, I think, is a lot better than people give them credit. And I think all those pieces of their offense, I think they're very, very well coached. I think Gruden is a good coach with a good system, and I think he's getting the most out of his team that he can. He's getting more out of the sum of the parts. You know what I mean? So, look, are they a great team? No, but I think they're better than what you think. Right?
I did some research, and the Redskins can franchise Kirk Cousins for a third time. They are allowed to do it,
and he can't do anything about it, right?
No, if they franchise him, he can't.
Well, I mean, poor him. He's going to make $30 million.
Right, even more, actually.
But he doesn't want to be there, right?
I wouldn't complain if I was him.
I don't think he wants to be there.
No, but I mean, if you don't have another option at QB, which they don't.
But the thing is, franchising him, when you look at it, so this would be the third year in a row they franchise him, right?
Correct.
Okay, so he's going to make $30 million next year. Let's just say
more.
Right?
Actually,
How much this year? 20 something.
Yes. So it's going to end up being roughly $75 million over the course of the 3 years.
Right.
Which, had they signed him to a long-term deal 3 years ago, they would have ended up paying less than $75 million.
Yeah.
So
well,
yes, but the truth is, for most NFL teams, so what? They would have paid him $50 million instead of $75. But for most NFL teams, an additional $25 million over the course of 3 years is nothing.
Yeah. No,
it's
but
really nothing to them.
I know it's nothing, but it's it just shows the weakness of the franchise. They never address the need of having a starting quarterback.
But you know what? I don't mind what they're doing. If their rule is there so that you can keep a player, if that's the purpose of the rule, then use it. I mean, if they don't have a better alternative at quarterback, which they don't, franchise him again until you're not allowed to do it anymore.
It's just so funny, right? Because he's gonna make a boatload of money, and it's he doesn't even want to be there, and he kind of has to accept it. It's such a weird situation.
It looks like he gets along with the coach. He might not get along with the general manager or the owner, but it looks like he gets along with the coach.
Look, if I was him, I wouldn't having this offensive-minded coach who really understands the passing game. I mean, I think there's worse places to be, right?
Also, the rumors were that he was going to go to San Francisco, but the Niners got Jimmy Garoppolo in a trade deadline day in the NFL that resembled the NHL trade deadline day.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's wild.
So now he's not going to San Francisco.
Yeah.
No, I mean, that doesn't mean there's no other place for him to go.
I read today, though, that the 49ers might try to trade Garoppolo.
I heard that as well, which the fact that they're actually not playing him doesn't make any sense to me. They went out and got this guy, and they're not even going to use him.
They are the franchise of my childhood. They're the team that I love, right? They're the team that I always rooted for. But this version of the 49ers, since Harbaugh left, I can't root for them. They're the most dysfunctional team that has ever existed.
The Skip and Josh podcast is back.
So I sent you a text today that shocked you.
Yes, before we get to that, though, I have one more football thing to say.
Sure.
I'm very upset with the Jacksonville Jaguars head coach.
Yeah?
Because he decided to bench Leonard Fournette, my best fantasy player, because Fournette didn't show up for a team photo this week.
Well, the rumor is about the team photo. I don't know if that's necessarily true, but
okay. Well, so more
whatever.
fake news is what you're saying.
No, all he said was that he broke a team rule, but
Okay.
people are speculating that it's the photo.
Does
But-
this coach not understand that people play fantasy football? And it's one thing, like Fournette didn't play last week because they were on a bye. He didn't play the
Yeah.
week before because he was injured. So
Yeah.
now this is 3 weeks in a row that I didn't get to use him.
Yeah, TJ Yeldon's stock never grows so high like an hour before the game,
Right, exactly.
right?
Anyway, that's all I
Well,
wanted to say.
That's all you want to say? Worlds were colliding. You know, you really think that the Jacksonville coaching staff cares about your fantasy team?
Well, you know what? If I ever get a chance to talk to them, I will let them know how I feel.
You're not the only one, believe me, right? All the Leonard Fournette, my son has him in his big fantasy team, and you know.
And I almost didn't
screwed him
know
up
about
today.
it till, like, I almost didn't find out about it. And I would have
Yeah,
just left
it was-
him in
it
there
was-
because,
It was just an hour before the game in that 12-1 window. Right?
yeah. So
Yeah.
so I don't normally watch those pregame shows that tell you who's sitting and who's not playing and all that. I don't normally watch those shows. I happened to turn it on because I had nothing to do, and I
Yeah.
see Leonard Fournette inactive. I'm like, wait a minute. He practiced all week. He's healthy. What do you mean inactive? That's got to be a mistake. And then
Yeah.
I looked, and it wasn't.
And he's such a beast, right? Honestly,
Yes.
he's so good. Anyways.
So
I
yes.
don't know if you want to talk MLS or not.
Well, yeah, no, you sent me a text message today. I'm
Yeah.
just going to read the text message to our listeners because I was stunned. It's a good thing I was sitting down. You said, I'm watching TFC. We'll talk some MLS tonight. So, first of
Okay,
all,
well-
I don't even know what the score. Did they win the game? I have no idea.
Well, they didn't win the game.
Are they eliminated now?
No, but they won on the aggregate in the stupid soccer rules.
Oh,
like,
okay, because they scored more goals on the road.
They won on the away goals tiebreaker.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay. So it was a rainstorm in Toronto today, so it was quite dramatic during the game, right? It was crazy to watch. But I just wanted to know, like, what's going on in Toronto? Is there a buzz about TFC, or people care about them? Or friends of the show, Joe, was at the game.
Oh, was
today. Yeah, I saw his Instagrams on it.
Oh, I didn't know he went.
Looked like he
I
had
guess
good
I should have
seats.
known. You know what? It's interesting. No one at work talks about TFC.
Yeah.
The other day, I went to my ball hockey game like I do every Monday and Tuesday.
Yeah.
And one of the guys, like not on my team, on the other team said, "Oh yeah, I gotta go to the bar after the game. I gotta rush to the
watch
bar
the
because I
soccer
want to
game."
see the TFC game." And I'm like,
Yeah.
seriously? Like you actually care about that? And
Yeah.
then to the point where as soon as his game ended,
He rushed
started watching the game on his phone. Like he was so into it. I mean, I don't know this guy very well, but I mean, I couldn't believe that anybody that I know was so into TFC that they need to watch it on their phone. I was stunned.
Last year in the MLS playoffs, I was like that. I was invested in the Montreal Impact, because they were there.
Right, because
This
it's your
year,
home team. I get it.
I don't. This year, I'm like they say, like I don't have a horse in the race.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't. It doesn't bother me what happens. Do I want to see Toronto win? Probably not. But like I don't care either way. But I was watching it because of the drama. So I don't. You're gonna find out what happened because I'm gonna tell you. Otherwise, you probably wouldn't even know.
No, I wouldn't. So please tell me.
So Giovinco and Altidore both cannot play next game.
Why did they get yellow cards?
Yeah, so there's a rule, like, if you get 2 yellow cards, like, you can't play the next game. So Giovinco already had a yellow in game 1, and then he got another yellow in this game. And the yellow he got was just for sheer stupidity, because he is an idiot, and he obviously dove, like embellishing to try to get a call, and he got a yellow. And it was so obvious. Now, TFC fans are going to scream bloody murder that it was a bad call. You got to take off those rose-colored glasses. That was 100% a dive. Like, there's no way around it, and he should know better. Now, Josie Altidore is another story. He got into a fight with a player on the other team on the way to the locker room in between the first and second half. There was a fight during the first half between these same two guys, Sasha Kleston, and who's the best player on the New York team, and Altidore. They got into like a big skirmish. It was heated on the field. They had to be separated. And then obviously it boiled over into the intermission because on the way to the locker rooms, apparently something happened. Now, nobody knew this because when the second half started, all of a sudden the second half started and the announcers were like, "Oh, I think Altidore and Kleston were both given red cards because they're both not on the field right now." Like it wasn't announced until the second half actually started.
Gotcha.
They weren't informed during the intermission. So right away. Red card means you're automatically out for the next game also.
So TFC screwed because that's 2 of their top 3 players.
It's their 2 best guys, right?
But is the next round also a best of 2?
Yeah. So they have hope there.
Okay.
But, whoever they play, they are waiting for the result between the other New York team, the New York City FC, and Columbus.
I was going to say, so there's 2 teams in New York, and so now they just beat one New York team, and they might have to play another New York team.
Well, Columbus had a big lead in the aggregate in their series, so I don't know what happened. Like, I'm assuming they're going to have to play Columbus.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, certainly Columbus really needs to jump all over them in that first game because without Giovinco and Altidore, probably what they're going to do is they're going to come out and play so totally defensive and try to just keep it close so they can get to game 2. Mm-hmm. But I thought, like, you being in Toronto and this whole drama that you're going to start hearing about tonight and tomorrow, like...
I might hear about it at work tomorrow if people are talking about it, but,
It was great theater. Like, honestly, it was great theater. And I tweeted something during the game before I knew he got a red card. Josie Altidore is bigger than anybody on the field. You see the size of this guy? Yeah, in size. He's a monster. He's a giant, right? He's literally a giant. And he is the biggest bully and simultaneously the biggest baby. Like, I couldn't believe it. Like, he's starting up with guys after every whistle, every foul, every stoppage. He's getting in the face of the guy on the other team, right up and like he's asking for a red card. He's asking for it, and eventually he got it. So good for him.
I have a question about MLS playoffs.
Yeah.
So, correct me if I'm wrong. Every single round is a 2-game total goal aggregate series, except when you get to the finals, it's just 1 game.
Yeah, it's stupid.
But isn't that backwards? Like, shouldn't the finals be more games than the other rounds?
I think it's because they don't... You're 100% right. That's how it works. I don't understand it either. And I think it's because they don't want the championship to be decided on the away goal tiebreaker.
But it's okay for all the other rounds to be decided that way.
Exactly, right? So if you don't like the way the away goal tiebreaker works, why do you have it in the first place? Now, the whole concept of playoffs in soccer doesn't make sense in the first place because this is the only league in the world where they have playoffs, right?
Well, how do you decide the champion if there's no playoffs?
The winner of whoever's in first place at the end of the season is the champion.
That's it? They don't have playoffs in Europe?
No playoffs.
Really?
Yeah. In the second division English soccer, what they call the championship, I believe there is a playoff of some type. I'm not 100% sure. Maybe someone could, correct me, send me a mail about that. I'm not sure, but that's like lower level. Like that's second division. But like the Premier League, the German Bundesliga, the Italian league, the Spanish league, there's no playoffs in these leagues. If you're in first place at the end of the season, that's how the champion is decided.
So, I mean, you might know the winner with like a month to go in the season. If there's a team that's dominating and they have such a huge lead, the last month is meaningless.
Yeah, well, I mean, usually you're not that far ahead. But yes, last year in the Premier League, Chelsea was running away with the league and everybody knew that they were going to win it from, the last 3 or 4 games that they played didn't really matter, So, as I mentioned, it's the 1-year anniversary of the show, and we're promising bigger and better things this year. So just
bigger,
wanted to
we can promise bigger. I don't know if we can promise better.
Better. Oh, it's hard. We set a standard. Just wanted to tell everybody like a little teaser about like what we recorded yesterday. So we should be releasing pretty soon a crossover episode with our buddies over at the Semi-Intellectual Musings podcast. So, part one of the episode is going to be on their channel, on their feed, I should say, and part 2 is going to be on ours. Mm-hmm. So we had a blast talking with them yesterday. It was great.
Yes, it was
and
very interesting.
I can't wait to release them, honestly. So, I mean, a lot of people may be wondering, because we've talked about the Tragically Hip many times on our show, but yet we never really talked about Gord Downey passing away and everything, which was so timely. So the part 1 of this crossover with the Semi-Intellectual Musings guys is over an hour, right? It's over an hour it's over an hour of Tragically Hip reminiscing, basically.
Banter.
Yeah, Tragically Hip, favorite songs, favorite moments, what they mean to us, what they mean to Canada, just like honestly, it's just a great conversation.
It was.
I don't want to reveal too much, but like Phil asked at the beginning, like, what was our favorite episode of our show in the year in our 1 year anniversary, like what was the favorite episode. And it's hard to identify one because, like I said, we talk about what's timely, we talk about what's in the moment. So it's hard to go back and remember some of those great episodes. But I think that Tragically Hip thing was my favorite conversation so far.
Right. Actually, we didn't mention this yesterday, but the episode I liked that we did was our end of year episode last year,
was great.
which I hope we do that again this year.
We will. I'm already started thinking of I've already taken mental notes about best team, best sports moment, and then last year we had best TV show, best song.
Yeah.
I'm already the hamster's turning, running in on his wheel in my brain, thinking about those. So yeah, come the end of December, we'll do the best of again for sure. Right?
Okay, good.
Yeah. All right, so before we sign off, remember you can listen and subscribe to new and archived episodes of the Skip and Josh podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Play, or basically the podcast app of your choice. Anywhere you find podcasts, just type in Skip and Josh and you'll find us. If you would like to send us an email, we would love to hear from you. skipandjoshshow@gmail.com. Twitter is always great, @skipandjosh, or you can also like and follow our Facebook page. And as always, everything that I just said, all the links I just mentioned are on our website, skipandjosh.com.
Awesome. Love it.
All right. Talk to you next time, Josh.
Have a good night.
The Skip and Josh podcast is over now. Don't worry, there'll be another episode soon.